What's going on, and welcome back, agents. It's LtBuzzLitebeer, back with another Division 2 upload. And fresh off the press are the full patch notes for Phase 3 of the Title Update 10 PTS. And as expected, there are quite a few specific changes to exotics, gear sets, brand sets, weapons, skills, PvP, and a surprise status effect revert. Yeah, so we've got a lot to cover today. But before we begin, if you haven't yet smashed that sub button for dedicated Division content, please do so. And don't forget to ring the bell to never miss an upload notification from my YouTube channel. Okay, here we go. Reading directly from the patch notes, and first up are gameplay changes. So the first category is in general. They've increased the rifle base ammo capacity by 50% from 280 to 420, which is certainly going to help out those of you who like to rock rifles on legendary missions. The gunner spec, emplacement talent, weapon handling bonus has been reduced from 15 to 10%. And by the way, they left a note over here, the UI text has not been updated and will still say 15% in the talent description. NPC difficulty balance reverted the increases to base NPC status effect resistances in heroic and legendary difficulties during PTS Phase 2. This was a surprise. I wasn't quite expecting this, but there's a lengthy explanation. Let me read it to you now. It says, note, some legendary bosses and specific archetypes in Phase 3 unfortunately did not have their resistances reverted. This has already been fixed TU10, where they'll be fully reverted back to previous levels. Here's the developer comment. One of the obvious advantages to running a PTS in multiple phases is we can be afforded the opportunity to try experimental ideas while receiving immediate feedback. We knew this would be a controversial change, but wanted to try it anyway in order to see how it would affect the endgame meta. Unfortunately, one of the things we failed to do was appreciate just how much a blanket resistance buff to NPCs would affect the viability of non-crowd control status effect builds. We never intended to release TU10 with any sort of nerf as significant as that, and fully intended to land somewhere much lower than the resistance values seen in PTS Phase 2. Despite those intentions, we agree these resistances changes are not in the best interest of the game, so they have been entirely reverted in favor of addressing the particular crowd control skills we feel are currently scaling too high in both uptime and frequency. More information on those changes can be found below in the skills portion of these patch notes. Wow. So yeah, I actually experimented with this both in Phase 1, where I don't think it had really taken effect, but Phase 2 certainly, and I streamed it, and you could see a definite nerf to how much of a blind status effect I could place onto even like named bosses on Heroic. So this will be interesting. As I get down further in the patch notes, it's also going to be interesting to see how much they've adjusted like the Firefly and the different status effects. But yeah, huge change there, reverting back to previous levels. I kind of like that, but I want to see what the changes are going to be for the specific status effect skills. All right, moving on. Loot. Loot containers, part of living world activities, now scale with global difficulty. Thank you. Developer comment, several issues regarding loot not scaling properly in PTS Phase 2 have been addressed. These are specific in the bug fixes section, or specified in the bug fixes section. Especially like the faction caches were not scaling. All right, moving on to exotics. And their comment is TU10 significant buff to weapon handling. Remember, I've spoken about this in the past two coverings of Phase 1 and Phase 2. Weapon handling is going to be big in TU10. Meant some exotic weapon mods no longer made sense or resulted in overtuned performance that no longer fit with the original design profile. We also took this opportunity to make improvements to underperforming exotic mods and configurations. First up, the Bighorn. Big Game Hunter headshots now grant plus 2% headshot damage, up from 1%. Increased optimal range from 27 meters to 40 meters. That's significant. Optics mod bonus increased from 0% to 30% headshot damage. That's also big. Magazine mod bonus changed from plus 7% headshot damage to plus 10% reload speed. So that'll be interesting to try out in the Bighorn. Next up is the Mantis. Optics mod bonus increased from 35 to 40% headshot. Muzzle mod bonus changed from 7% headshot to 5% crit hit chance. Now highlights weak points when aiming through the scope, whereas it used to just highlight their heads. Okay, Nemesis. Optic mod bonus increased from 35 to 45% headshot damage. Wow, okay. Underbarrel mod bonus reduced from 15 to 5% weapon handling. So that's going to affect everything like reload speed, accuracy, stability. Remember, weapon handling is an all-encompassing attribute now in TU10. Chameleon has quite a few changes. Adaptive Instincts increased the number of hits required to gain the body shots buff from 60 to 75 and increased its weapon damage bonus from 80 to 90%. Optics mod bonus changed from 15% accuracy to 15% crit hit chance. Muzzle mod bonus changed from 5% critical hit chance to 10% accuracy. Underbarrel mod bonus changed from 10% crit hit chance to 10% stability. Okay, I'll have to try this out. The Chameleon for me, I always avoided hitting the leg shots. It was all just a torso, neck, and head aim for me. So now that adding on another 15 shots to the body just to get the damage buff for another 10%, we'll have to see how that goes. That sounds like possibly a nerf to me. Merciless and Ruthless, Binary Trigger, reduced the amplified weapon damage at 7 stacks from 900% to 500%, and the explosion damage from 1200% to 500%. Those are two huge changes. Muzzle mod bonus reduced from 20 to 10% stability. Underbarrel mod reduced from 20 to 10% weapon handling. Magazine mod bonus reduced from 15% to 10% reload speed. Okay, just like the Chameleon, I'll have to try out this Merciless in Phase 3, but those are huge changes just to the sheer damage output of the Merciless. Wow. They basically cut the weapon damage at 7 stacks in half, and the explosion damage almost by 2/3. That's a bunch. Here's the dev comment. Merciless was previously balanced for its very unwielding handling and compensated with very high burst damage. With access to much higher weapon handling, this is being toned down dramatically. Okay, we'll have to try it out, but that's a major nerf to the Merciless. Eagle Barrel. Underbarrel mod bonus changed from 10% stability to 10% weapon handling. Ooh, I like that. So now everything is affected. Okay. Lady Death. Breathe Free lowered the amount of maximum stacks from 40 to 32 and increased the damage amp per stack from 60 to 75%. Optics mod bonus increased from 5 to 10% crit hit chance. Muzzle mod bonus changed from 5% critical hit chance to 5% critical hit damage. Underbarrel mod changed from 5% crit hit damage to 500% melee damage. Once again, I'll have to try this out. I don't actually have a Lady Death. It's the only exotic I don't have. I've really got to find this thing, but melee damage. Okay. Pestilence. Muzzle mod bonus changed from 10% stability to 10% accuracy. Underbarrel mod bonus changed from 10% weapon handling to 10% stability. Ooh, darn. It would have been nice if they left that weapon handling right there. Chatterbox. Optics mod bonus increased from 5 to 15% crit hit chance. That's big. Muzzle mod bonus changed from 10% crit hit chance to 5% crit hit damage. Okay. I mean, with an SMG setup, you're going to find plenty of crit hit chance. That's not going to be the issue. So if you can find, mass amounts of crit hit damage, that's what you want. Underbarrel mod bonus reduced from 15 to 10% weapon handling. Okay. Magazine mod bonus changed from 10% reload speed to 10 rounds. Magazine base capacity reduced from 60 to 50. Okay, so they basically did 6 of one, half dozen of the other on the last two there. All right, and the Liberty. Optics mod bonus changed from 5% crit hit chance to 5% headshot damage. Muzzle mod bonus changed from 15% stability to 5% crit hit chance. Magazine mod from 15% reload speed to 15% weapon handling. That's a big change right there. No longer highlights weak points when aiming. Okay, and the Regulus, which we've been able to try out on the PTS, but remember that's going to be in the Iron Horse raid. Muzzle mod bonus change from 5% crit hit damage to 20% accuracy. All right. So some big changes in the exotics. Gear sets, Foundry Bulwark, makeshift repairs repair, overtime effect reduced from 40% of damage taken over 10 seconds to 20% over 15 seconds. Okay. So they're basically lowering how much you can heal over time and increasing the amount of time it takes to heal. So that's a major nerf from what we had in Phase 2. Improved materials now increases makeshift repairs from 20% to 30% over 15 seconds. Process refinery now increases makeshift repairs repair speed from 15 to 10 seconds. So it's going to force you into using the chest and the backpack. That's essentially what they've done. The intention for Foundry Bulwark, this is the dev comment by the way, is for it to be the premier gear set choice for tanks or players looking to maximize their survivability, especially when paired with a shield such as the Bulwark, which makes sense. These values should better represent the level of survivability we intended this gear set to provide, as we still want situational awareness and smart positioning to be a factor in moment-to-moment decision making. The previous tuning during PTS Phase 1 and 2 meant even bad play couldn't be punished due to the overly generous damage reduction and self-repair strength. Okay, brand sets. Incoming repairs, brand set bonus increased from, what is it? Okay, so what they're talking about is on 511 Tactical and R&K, GmbH, incoming repairs, brand set bonuses increased from 15% to 20% on both of those. Okay. Weapons, 3 weapons in here. Carbine 7 is getting a damage increase from 7.6 to 8.7. CTAR 21, also a damage increase, 6.2 to 8.6. And the MPX, the SIG, is getting a decrease. It's being nerfed from 20.8 to 17.7. All right, down here into the skills, and this is pretty lengthy, and then they've got a huge, I guess, almost like a doctoral dissertation down here, but I'm going to try and read through it as fast as I can. Skills, Seeker Mines, Cluster Seeker Mines targeting accuracy improved. The Hive, Stinger Hive base damage reduced by 20%. Stinger Hive damage bonus per skill tier increased from 10% to 20%. Okay. Restorer Hive now gains 5% drone flight speed per skill tier. Okay. Chem Launcher, Riot Foam, Chem Launcher, and Snare Duration bonus per skill tier reduced from 20 to 10%. Here's the Firefly, and I make quite a bit of use of this. Blinder Firefly, blind duration bonus per skill tier reduced from 20% to 10%, so they cut it in half. Blinder Firefly base blind duration reduced from 6 seconds to 5 seconds. Okay. So they reverted all of the status effects, resistances on the heroics and etc back to normal, but now they've reduced the blinder Firefly, so we'll have to mess around with this in Phase 3 and see just how long I can keep targets blinded and how quickly I get it back off cooldown. That might really hurt my CC build. Pulse, Banshee Pulse base confused duration reduced from 5 to 4. Jammer Pulse base disrupt duration reduced from 4 to 3. I also used the Jammer Pulse, so I got hit there as well. Double whammy. Shock Trap base duration reduced from 5 to 3 seconds, although the PvP duration remains unchanged. Shock Trap based radius increased from 2 to 2.5 meters. Okay. And then they have this long thing that I'm going to try and read for you here. So here we go. One of the core objectives for the design team when working on Warlords of New York was to make the endgame challenging again and to put a greater emphasis on both personal and group build synergy. When we shipped Warlords of New York, we reduced the maximum power deltas on gear, which meant players could no longer over-gear content like they could previously, which had the desired effect of making difficulty levels matter again. While we consider that a success, it also had it's supposed to be the unfortunate consequence of bringing to light a lot of degenerate NPC behavior that was always present, but entirely invisible due to players being 4 to 5 times more powerful than the content they were doing prior to Warlords. This retuning of the RPG mechanics has forced us to audit the economics of our NPC encounters in more ways than one, in order to address unfair, overly punishing, or generally overtuned NPC archetypes. We consider all of this a good thing because it keeps us honest as developers and the game as fair as possible without compromising what makes difficult content fun and rewarding in the first place, the challenge. With all that said, the two things that were clear from the start of Warlords launch: NPCs were too powerful, I agree, and player crowd control CC skills were scaling too high. I will agree to disagree. One became unnecessarily evil to combat the other, and so we were reluctant to make any changes to CC skills before addressing the core issue of NPC balance. We believe the tuning of NPCs and their scaling across the difficulty tiers, or different tiers of difficulty, is in a much better or healthier place as of TU 9.1, and the generous amount of buffs to weapon damage and gear coming in TU 10 will only further tip the scales in the player's favor. In order to maintain a healthy balance between players and NPCs at the highest difficulties, and to preserve the integrity of our vision for endgame, we now need to address the power of crowd control skills. It's only got a few more paragraphs, don't worry guys. The changes outlined above were done to bring dedicated crowd control builds more in line with what we expect their contribution to a fire team to be. CC effects act as powerful force multipliers, multiplying the strength of every individual on a team by both lowering and preventing incoming damage entirely and enabling the group's damage dealers to do so with impunity. The current tuning of CC effects on live TU 9.1 lead to NPCs on even legendary difficulty being snared, blinded, disrupted, confused for longer than the cooldown of the skill itself, giving them no opportunity to defend themselves or fight back once the CC effect wore off. So what? That's the effects that I want. I want to blind them and confuse them for longer than they can fight back. Absolutely. This inevitably leads to situations where the only time a group with a dedicated crowd control would come under threat was when NPCs reached immunity through diminishing returns from constant reapplication of CC effects, or the CC effect itself failed to register or apply an activation, which we will continue to address and fix now more than ever. A more insidious and less visible consequence of having overpowered crowd control effects is that it discourages the desire or need for any other form of group compensation that isn't 1 CC and 3 DPS. Why consider bringing along a tank or healer when your crowd control essentially does the job of both? There is no need for a healer if the group never takes damage, and no need for a tank if the NPCs are always incapacitated or rooted in place. It's important to stress that none of these changes were made to discourage bringing a crowd control to a gunfight. In fact, we're more than confident that dedicated crowd controller builds will remain the linchpin of any heroic or legendary group due to just how powerful these CC effects are despite their reduction in uptime. What we do envision happening, hopefully, is a reconsideration of what to bring to your next gunfight, and that maybe the value of healers and tanks will increase as the proposition of smoothing out the bumps between crowd-controlled opportunities becomes something to consider. So a huge dev comment in there. So basically they had issues moving from Washington, D.C. into Warlords of New York. Before we had Warlords, we were overpowered. Once we hit Warlords, we were definitely underpowered, and now they're trying to go in and correct some of the perverted mechanics underneath there that were hidden by the fact that we were 4 to 5 times stronger than we needed to be. So a lot going on in there. Let me keep on moving. They also have PvP. Foundry Bulwark, makeshift repairs, repair over time effect reduced by 50% in PvP. Weapons, shotgun PvP damage reduced by 12.5%. Pistol PvP damage reduced by 10%. Merciless, Ruthless, Binary Trigger, amped weapon damage and explosion damage reduced by 50% in PvP. Skills in PvP, Firestarter Chem Launcher reduced by 20%. Stinger High PvP damage increased by 20%, scaling up to 65% at skill tier 6. Okay. Striker Drone PvP damage increased by 30%. It was 20 in PTS2. Assault Turret PvP damage increased by 55%. It was at 25% in PTS2. Then they've got a series of bug fixes, and I will leave a link to all of the PTS Phase 3 patch notes down in the video description. So a lot going on in there. General changes, huge revert on CC builds, but changes to the individual CC effects themselves. Lots of very specific changes to exotics were thrown in there. Gear sets, brand sets, weapons, huge amounts of skills. There was like dev comments on every one of those skill changes. I don't want to read those. That could take another 10 to 15 minutes. And there's a huge list of bug fixes. So I encourage you all to take a look at that link. I'll leave it in the video description. I'll leave it as a pinned comment as well. Go take a look at them on your own time there. But a lot going on PTS Phase 3. And a pretty lengthy explanation as to what happened in between DC and Warlords of New York, which we had all figured out anyway. There was a huge difference in difficulty between what we were used to in DC, and then once we transferred into NYC, and we just started getting folded instantly with our previously very powerful builds, we were wondering what's happening. So I encourage you to go take a look. I think this is enough for today, and as always, I look forward to reading your thoughts about the changes that are possibly going to make it out of the PTS and into the live game. Remember to smash the sub button and ring the bell for more Division content notifications. If you like the video, rate it with a thumbs up, if not, with a thumbs down. If you feel like supporting my full-time YouTube content creation outside of YouTube, I will include links to my Patreon and Teespring accounts in the video description. Follow me on Twitter for all my latest thoughts concerning most things gaming related. And until the next one, this is Lieutenant BuzzLitebeer, signing off.